a salary is a perceived worth of an employee by the employer. So that's the major point of what we must be able to recognize. The salary itself is a perceived worth. It's not what you are worth in itself. An employer cannot really pay you for your time. They can't really pay you for what you are worth. They can't really pay you for your time and everything. But in their mind, they need to be able to fix an amount. They need to be able to say, for you exchanging your 9 hours with us, what exactly can we choose to give, or what can we afford to pay for that particular time? So I think every job seeker and every young professional trying to negotiate with an employer must understand what the employer is thinking. Because if you don't understand what's in the mind of the employer, it's very difficult for you to be able to give what it takes, or be able to answer the salary negotiation question in a way that it fits the employer. So it's interesting for you to know that it's a perceived worth. So I also go ahead to help organizations to set salary scales. So I'm giving you an insider scope, an insider secret to it. So at the point of setting that salary scale, the organization looks at what can we afford to pay. So it's perceived worth. So from the job seeker's point of view, you must understand that every employer is willing to recruit any employee that they are able to afford part-time. So when I say affordability in the course of the from the employer's point of view, it's talking about how much can we afford to pay and sustain. From the employer point of view, you are looking at it that they should be able to pay me 100 naira. The employer is saying, even if we pay you 100 naira now, can we sustain it over a certain period? So it's not about what the job seeker or the employee is looking at. It's a function of what the employer is able to pay and is able to sustain over a certain period. So we're talking about affordability on the part of the employer. We're talking about sustainability. So an employer would not want to pay you an amount he cannot sustain over a certain period. But from the employee point of view, from the job seeker point of view, they just look at the organization. They look at how big the organization is and they say, no, these guys should be able to pay me this amount. But you're wrong. From the employer point of view, they're looking at something else. What is in their mind is completely different from what you're thinking. So it's interesting for you to understand this, because if you don't understand the way the employer is thinking, it's difficult for you to be able to name an amount that is reasonable enough for them to see that you are coming to add value. Every good employer is always willing to exchange their money for value. So this value, how employers perceive this value, the employees and job seekers are bringing to the table differ. One is the experiential value, and the other one is the potential value. Now, potential as it is, it's just in store, something in store. It's not been demonstrated. Now, that goes to your educational qualification is a potential. You've not demonstrated it. You're able to tell them that you have potential for something, not that you have really done the work. That's why employers tend to ask for experience. That's experiential value. Experiential value says, I have learned this in the classroom, and this are what I have used that value to do. So in essence, what we're saying is this: an employer at the point of making an offer or asking you how much would they pay you, they want to look at the potential value you're bringing to the table and the experiential value. Your education, and what have you done with the education, or what is the experience that you can show that you have been able to demonstrate based on the potential of your qualification. So you as the job seeker, what must you do? What do you bring to the table? How do you command that value? At the point of the interview, Interview is about perception. So when you are called for an interview, after your CV has passed through the shortlist process and you are called for an interview, the point of the interview is negotiation, is conversation to say, come and tell us what you can do. What can you do for us? So it's a conversation. The way you demonstrate that value is very important. What the employer would largely pay for is more on the experiential value, the experience. What have you done before? What are you willing to do? You have ability to do and is able to replicate when we bring you on board. When an employer asks you, what's your salary expectation? Or what are you currently earning at the moment? They are trying to gauge in their mind what value you're currently exchanging for money. Yes, if you come to name 3 times your salary, what's the assurance we have that you'll be able to demonstrate value 3 times what you currently demonstrate? That's exactly what you're telling an employer. So an employer asks you, what are you currently on? You said 100K. How much are you? What's your expectation for this role? You said, for example, 200K. Now, you're saying 200 means you're willing to come and do twice what you're currently doing. If it's a no, then you're not willing to do anything. So it's not enough for you to say, I'm coming to demonstrate value. They want to see the value. And how do they see it? In terms of the experience, in terms of your achievement on your current role. So in actual sense, if you are able to demonstrate value at your interview, then whatever amount you name becomes easier, because when they name it, the employer has seen value already from the interview process. As it stands today, that is how the employer will perceive the value. A salary is a perceived value that the employer thinks the employee would add to them. So it's an exchange of value. The employer gives you money for your time and you give them value in return.